Now, isn't there another problem with the genealogy in the sense that the Gospels say that he comes from, well, whichever ones they list mention from the house of David, but it doesn't actually trace back to Solomon. It actually traces back to another one of his sons. But then the prophets actually say it's from Solomon?
Right. So that problem is, they're all so plagued with problems. So you have two genealogies, as I mentioned. You have the genealogy of Matthew in Matthew chapter 1, and you have the genealogy of Luke in chapter 3. Now, Matthew traces the genealogy of Matthew is chapter 1, verse 2 through 16. That's where you actually have the names. Matthew does seek to say that Joseph was a descendant of King David and Solomon. As it turns out, Matthew's and Luke's genealogy are not relevant to Jesus because, as it turns out, those are the only two books, whoever authored them, that are going to assert that Jesus was in fact born to a virgin and Joseph was not his father. So therefore, these genealogies are actually completely irrelevant.
Interesting.
I've heard Christians say that Joseph adopted him. In order to get an adoption, God would have to give him up for adoption. I mean, these are preposterous arguments. So Matthew's genealogy does trace through King Solomon. That would be the 15th generation, because from Abraham to David is 14 generations. So that would be number 15. And it does have to trace itself through King Solomon. King David had many other children, but the Bible tells us in 1 Chronicles 22, verse 9 and 10, the Bible tells us in 2 Samuel 12 through 16, Scripture tells us in 1 Chronicles 17, that it has to go through Solomon, not any one of the children. Well, as it turns out, Luke's genealogy, if you look at the 15th from Abraham, there is a distinction. Luke does go back to Adam, just so you understand. So we're just going to ignore that because Luke starts with Adam, Matthew doesn't. So Luke goes to Nathan, who's another child of David, not King Solomon. And therefore that violates Psalm 89, verse 29 through 38. Right straight there. It has to go through King Solomon. So Luke's genealogy is worthless. I mean, the problem is so staggering because the virgin birth claim, therefore, these genealogies, these putative genealogies, are genealogies of Joseph. They're not of Jesus, right, according to Matthew and Luke. So here's what happened here. I mean, there's sometimes I'm guessing, but this one I'm not guessing on. So obviously, at some stage, people are believing that Jesus is the Messiah. At some stage, they think he's the Messiah. It's very clear that during his lifetime, that's not what was on people's minds, because that even comes through in the Christian Bible. The Christian Bible is conceding the fact that no one has a clue who he is. His disciples don't know who he is, what he's supposed. They even just clueless. At the end, not at the beginning of his ministry, but the end. Who am I? Nobody knows. And if you know, you didn't get it from me. You didn't hear it from me. Right. You got it from somewhere else. Wow. Okay, that didn't just fall into the New Testament. That's referencing that people really weren't just not certain about it, and it's addressing that people just had no idea.
Unbelievable. So
at an early stage, it is said that it's asserted that he's from the house of David. But but what happens is towards the end of the first century, you have the idea that Jesus basically was that his mother never went to bed with anyone, like Caesar Augustus, like Romulus, like Hercules, like all the the godmen of the ancient world. The key was, like Buddha, the key was that the mother of God did not sleep with anyone. That's what's critical. That God made her pregnant. Now, the Christians will adopt the virgin birth. Everyone adopted. They obviously are restricted to how God got her pregnant. So,
sure,
they're restricted within a certain genre. They can't have like the God of Israel doing what Zeus is doing, so they set it up a little differently. So Zeus is actually, running around sleeping with all kinds of attractive women in the ancient world. Jupiter follows suit. The God of Israel is not the kind of God that sleeps just sleeping with. So it's different. Each one has a different. But the key is the Mother of God does not go to bed with anybody. That's the key. The Catholic Church, she never went to bed with anyone ever. And they got a whole concocted thing of why Joseph never slept with his wife. Oh, he was a very old man. It was a second marriage. Don't ask. It's a whole, Protestants are shocked when I talk about the Catholic tradition on this point.
What I find,
So,
I'm sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead. No,
what I
go
found
ahead.
was kind of odd too. I heard somebody mention one time, just before I ran into you the first time. This was while I was still messianic. Was one of the comments that really shook me was that, are you telling me that God would impregnate a betrothed woman, violating his own Torah? And I was thinking that's an interesting point too. If Mary was betrothed already to Joseph to be married, and then this whole mysterious thing took place, that's just another violation among many others in the Torah itself. It's really bizarre.
You know, as I said, the emperors of Rome, Vespasian, these guys were all said. Octavius, the first emperor of Rome, his mother can't sleep with anybody, but it's within a different, they have to work within that world. Well, how does she get pregnant? Well, it's a little different. Each tradition, in the Egyptian tradition, it's different than how in the East, in India, the Hindu tradition of how their gods, Hanuman, the monkey god, born to a virgin. I mean, just all, it's based, it's cultural centric. So but the key is the mother of gods does not go to bed with people. That doesn't happen. So that's the key. However it happens, but the Christians have to conflate a pagan idea of a virgin birth that was, I mean, if you weren't born of a virgin, you didn't have the CV to be the son of God,
right? Which
was the ascription to the emperors of Rome. They were the son of God. I mean, that was just the normative talk in the ancient world. But they had to work within some framework of the Jews. Well, the God of Israel, it's going to be different how the God of Israel is going to get Mary pregnant, and how Zeus is going to get, Mars, some other virgin pregnant, and so on, Maya pregnant, depending on, pick your virgin, how it's going to happen. Each one has its own way, which works culturally in that society. Because some Christians argue, oh, well, the other virgin births are different. Women gets pregnant in a different way. Well, that's not the point. That's a game. The point was that I just cannot accept the fact that God's mommy went to bed with anyone. And that was very critical. Right. That was really, really important. And then they work within a framework that was within that culture. That's all.
And this all comes purely from only one verse in the Tanakh. Not two, but just the one that's the mistranslation, correct?
Well, Matthew, it's not like somebody was looking at Isaiah 7 and went, whoa, I guess the Messiah is born of a virgin. That's not what happened. What occurred is that in the ancient world, the people who are called the Son of God, like the emperors of Rome, what you see in Mark 1:1, all the emperors of Rome, that's how they were dressed. This is the Son of God, period. The Greeks really meant it. The son of a mouse is a mouse. The son of a giraffe is a giraffe. The son of a god is a god. He's not the God. The big God is bigger. He's the one who brought him into existence, but he is nowhere equal. Hercules does not equal, who's a great athlete. He certainly was when you have an athlete that great, you had to be impregnated. Zeus had to get your mother pregnant. But he's not, no one ever, if you said in the ancient world that Hercules was equal to Zeus, they'd laugh at you. This is the lowest tier of the gods. So they would say, whatever you out of your mind. So first what happens is Jesus is called the Son of God. And let's say about the year 50, around there, we're working with limited information, but from Paul's letters, it's very clear that at that stage, certainly, it's Gentiles that are becoming Christians. It's not coming from the Jews anymore. It's large. This is becoming a Gentile religion, and Paul's, because we can only garner that from Paul's letters. It's all about non-Jews who are becoming Christians, and so for them, this is a very big deal, you know, that you know, so the idea of a virgin birth starts to creep in. If you're the son of God, then you're born of a virgin. So that's what happens. That's what happens first. It could be that what Paul says, don't occupy yourself with fables and crazy genealogies, and with nothing good can come out of it. And it's possible that these genealogies and these fanciful ideas of a virgin birth, he was trying to dismiss it at the time, in this very early stage. Paul's letters are all written in the 50s.
Okay. And
perhaps 49. So what happens is, first you got a virgin birth claim that now infused itself into an oral tradition of the church. Remember, in the early church, there is no Christian Bible, and there really isn't an interest in a Christian Bible, because the early church was apocalyptic, which means that the early church thought that it was all over and it's going to be all over tomorrow. And therefore, it didn't make a difference if you got married or didn't get married. It didn't make a difference if you had a slave, didn't have a slave. It didn't make a difference. It didn't make a difference, because it's all, God's kingdom is coming now. It's tomorrow, the day after. So we don't need a Christian Bible. We don't need the church, because it's happening. Well, what are you going to do with the Bible? It's happening now. Get ready. We're going to be caught up in the clouds, and those who died are going to join us. They thought it was then. So it was only later, once they go, whoa, it's taking a little bit longer and everyone's died, that now a Christian Bible really becomes very important. The idea that the Messiah is born of a virgin can be proved from the Jewish Bible is the result of an effort by somebody scouring the Jewish scriptures, hoping to find any passage that could be construed to claim that the Messiah would be born of a virgin. They happened upon a verse which doesn't have the word virgin or the word Messiah, and is not even describing the end times. But what they did was mistranslate the passage. They didn't copy the Septuagint. Get that out of your head. The Septuagint copied this. Septuagint would be a Christian product. So this text, along with a whole series of verses in the Jewish Bible, would be mistranslated in order to support, to lend some validity, not to all communities. For instance, we have Luke and Matthew claiming that Jesus was born of a virgin. Whoever Luke is writing for, we don't know. We don't know who wrote the book of Luke. We know that whoever wrote the book of Luke liked Paul a lot, because we see that from the book of Acts. He really wanted Paul's idea of Christianity to win out. Doesn't mean it was his companion. That's a Catholic tradition, that it was Luke, the physician in Colossians. That's nonsense. So Luke's audience is not interested in verses. So there's no verse for this. Matthew's audience, the author believed, would be interested in it. So you have people scouting, can we come up with a verse that could support what I already believe? They come up with Isaiah 7:14. So Matthew, it's not like someone happened upon Isaiah 7:14 and said, whoa, Messiah is a virgin. No, that's a reverse engineering that occurs later. The text is shifted, is altered in order to adapt itself to a belief system that already crept into Christianity in the latter half of the first century. This is going to be done all over the place. It means Christians are going to be changing their own Bibles. They're going to be adding in Luke 22, verse 19 and 20. They're going to be adding in the Trinity passage in 1 John 5 and 7, 1 John 5, 7 through 8. They're going to be retrofitting their own text, the Jewish Bible, all changing it so that it appears Christological. Luke's Jesus' last words, forgive them for they know not what they do. A lot of scribes don't like the fact that Luke's passion narrative seems to exculpate the Jewish people. They didn't like Jews, so some manuscripts took it out. So I know to the listeners, this is really weird. I mean, people would really do that. Christians would play with text. That's what they did. I mean, they altered these texts, the Jewish Bible, the Christian, it made no difference. It was altered to conform to what they already believe. We don't have vicarious atonement in Luke, not a problem. We will create Luke 22, half of 22:19 and all of verse 20. Your Christian Bibles will tell you that in the commentary. There's nothing I'm telling you that any scholar is unaware of.
So as you mentioned before, that's definitely the painting of the bullseye around your arrow.
Oh yeah, of course. They wanted to find a verse, and they did it. And then later on, they really were really short on this, and they started to go to medrashas and Talmuds and so on. Can we find something to be construed there to support Jesus? This will be done in the 13th century exquisitely by a wicked Jew, converted to Christianity. But it was done. They found passages that were just taken out of context, and today missionaries who hate the Talmud, who spit on the Talmud, curse the Talmud, will champion and hold it up as the holiest book in the whole world if they can use a passage in the Talmud which appears to support the Christological ideas, of course.